The holographic transmission flickered to life in the darkened command center of United Nations Space Command headquarters. The pale blue light spread across the faces of Earth's most powerful leaders, casting long shadows on the metal walls behind them. Admiral Grace Patterson stood at the center of the room with her arms folded behind her back, watching as the alien figures slowly materialized before them. High Arbiter Velthon of the Galactic Council appeared as a towering creature standing nearly 3 meters tall. His body was covered in iridescent scales that shifted colors as he moved, and 6 eyes arranged in a circle on his elongated head moved independently, studying each human in the room with what could only be described as deep contempt. Behind him, barely visible in the shadows of the transmission, the shapes of 11 other council species. Representatives shifted and whispered among themselves. The room had fallen completely silent. Every officer, every diplomat, every scientist present understood that this moment would define the future of their entire species. Humanity had been expanding into the stars for 300 years, building colonies, mining asteroids, and reaching ever further into the darkness of space. They had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it was not the answer they had hoped for. Velthon let the silence stretch for a long moment before he spoke. His voice came through the neural interface translation systems, converted into words that humans could understand. Though the cold tone needed no translation at all. Humanity, he began, speaking the word as if it left a bad taste in his mouth. You have been observed for the past 3 of your centuries. From the moment your primitive vessels first left the gravity well of your homeworld, the eyes of the Galactic Council have been upon you. We watched as you spread to your neighboring planets. We watched as you developed faster than light travel. We watched as you pushed beyond your home system and began to claim worlds that were not yours to claim. Secretary General Daniel Cooper stepped forward from the group of human leaders. He was a tall man in his 60s, with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen decades of political battles. His expression remained neutral as he addressed the alien before him. We were not aware that these territories belonged to anyone, he said, keeping his voice steady and diplomatic. The worlds we colonized were uninhabited. There were no signs of previous settlement or any indication that another species had claimed them. Velthon's 6 eyes focused on the Secretary General simultaneously, and the effect was deeply unsettling. Uninhabited does not mean unclaimed, the High Arbiter replied, his voice growing colder. The Galactic Council has governed this region of space for 40,000 of your years. We have mapped every system, cataloged every world, and established the boundaries of civilized space long before your ancestors learned to make fire. Your species emerged from your homeworld barely 300 years ago. You are infants, Secretary General. Infants playing with technologies you do not understand, reaching for stars that do not belong to you. Admiral Patterson exchanged a glance with her aide, Lieutenant Commander Kyle Bennett. The young officer stood at attention near the wall, his jaw tight with barely contained anger, but military discipline kept him silent. Grace gave him a small nod, a silent command to remain calm, and turned her attention back to the alien transmission. Your expansion into the Outer Rim territories has raised serious concerns among the elder races, Velthon continued. You have established 17 colony worlds and systems that border council space. You have built military installations. You have extracted resources. You have behaved as if the galaxy was yours for the taking. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. This behavior cannot continue. Daniel Cooper clasped his hands in front of him, maintaining his composure despite the obvious threat in the alien's words. The people of Earth have always been willing to engage in diplomatic discussions, he said. If there are territorial concerns, we are prepared to negotiate in good faith. What does the Council want from us? Want? Velthon repeated the word as if it amused him. The Council does not want anything from you, human. The Council requires, and what the Council requires is compliance. He raised one of his 4 arms, and the holographic display behind him shifted to show a star map. Human territory appeared as a small blue region surrounded by the vast expanse of council space, which stretched across thousands of light years in every direction. You will withdraw from all 17 colony worlds within one standard galactic cycle, Velthon declared. You will relocate your populations back to systems within 50 light years of your homeworld. You will dismantle your military installations in the Outer Rim. You will submit to council oversight of your weapons technologies and shipbuilding facilities. And you will provide tribute in the form of resources and labor as befitting a species of your standing. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Around the room, human leaders struggled to contain their reactions. Some faces showed shock. Others showed fear. But many, particularly among the military officers, showed something else entirely. Something cold and hard and dangerous. Tribute, Daniel repeated slowly. You are asking us to become a subject species. A servant race to the council? I am not asking, Velthan replied. I am informing you of the requirements for your continued existence. Dr. Margaret Ellis, head of Earth's Xenological Studies Division, stepped forward. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and the kind of brilliant mind that had helped humanity reach the stars in the first place. Hi, Arbiter, she said, her voice carefully controlled. What you are describing would require the relocation of nearly 400 million people. It would collapse our outer economy. It would set our technological development back by decades. Your concerns are noted, Velthan said dismissively. They are irrelevant. And if we refuse? Daniel asked the question that everyone in the room wanted to ask. His voice remained steady. But there was steel beneath the calm surface. Velthan. Six eyes seemed to gleam with something that might have been anticipation. Then you will be made to comply, he said simply. The Galactic Council has existed for 40,000 years. In that time, we have encountered 312 species that believed themselves capable of defying our authority. Some chose to accept their place in the natural order of the galaxy. They submitted. They paid their tribute. They survived. He paused, letting the silence fill the room. Others, he continued, his voice dropping to something almost soft, chose differently. They fought. They resisted. They believed that their courage and their conviction would be enough to overcome the combined might of the elder races. Another pause. Those species no longer exist. The transmission flickered slightly as Velthan leaned forward, his massive form dominating the holographic display. You have one galactic cycle to deliver your answer. Use the time wisely, humans. Consider what you value most. Your pride or your survival. Your defiance or your future. The choice is yours. But remember this. The Council has never issued a warning twice. The holographic image dissolved into static and then darkness, leaving the humans alone in the command center with the weight of an impossible choice pressing down upon them. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Admiral Grace Patterson turned to face the assembled leaders, her expression as cold and hard as forged steel. Well, she said quietly, I believe we have our answer about whether we are alone in the universe. Lieutenant Commander Bennett moved to her side. Admiral, what do we do? Grace Patterson looked at the space where the alien had been, and something ancient and dangerous flickered in her eyes. Something that every human in that room recognized, because it lived in all of them. It was the same thing that had driven their ancestors to cross oceans and conquer continents and reach for the stars themselves. We do what humans have always done when someone tells us to kneel, she said. We stand up. 3 days had passed since the Galactic Council delivered its ultimatum, and the leaders of Earth gathered in the most secure location on the planet. The bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains had been built centuries ago to survive nuclear war. But now it served a different purpose. Now it held the fate of humanity within its reinforced walls. Representatives from every major nation sat around the massive circular table. Colony governors attended through holographic links, their images flickering slightly as signals traveled across the vast distances of space. Military commanders stood along the walls with their arms crossed and their faces grim. Scientists and diplomats filled every remaining seat, and the tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Secretary General Daniel Cooper sat at the head of the table, looking older than he had 3 days ago. The weight of the decision before them showed in the lines on his face and the shadows under his eyes. He had not slept since the transmission ended. Admiral Grace Patterson stood near a large display screen, waiting for the briefing to begin. Beside her, Lieutenant Commander Kyle Bennett held a data tablet containing the intelligence reports that would shape this discussion. Dr. Margaret Ellis sat nearby, her fingers tapping nervously on the table as she prepared to deliver findings that would or give them hope or confirm their worst fears. Daniel cleared his throat and the room fell silent. "We all know why we are here," he said, his voice heavy. "The Galactic Council has given us a choice between submission and destruction. Before we decide how to respond, we need to understand exactly what we are facing. Dr. Ellis, please begin." Margaret stood and activated the holographic display. A map of the galaxy appeared, with Council territory marked in red and human space shown as a tiny blue dot near the edge. "The Galactic Council consists of 12 elder species," she began, keeping her voice steady despite the fear that gripped her heart. "Each of these species has existed for tens of thousands of years. Their combined populations number in the hundreds of billions. Their technology is advanced beyond anything we have achieved, and their military forces include millions of warships spread across thousands of systems." She zoomed the display to show human territory in greater detail. The 17 colony worlds appeared as small points of light, fragile and isolated against the vast darkness. By comparison, she continued, humanity controls approximately 200 star systems. Our total population across all worlds is roughly 12 billion. Our military fleet consists of approximately 8,000 vessels of various sizes. In terms of raw numbers, we are outnumbered by a factor of several hundred to one. A murmur of despair rippled through the room. One of the colony governors, a woman named Patricia Dunn from the agricultural world of New Eden, leaned forward with fear in her eyes. "Are you saying we have no chance? That we should simply accept their terms?" "I am saying we are outgunned," Margaret replied. "But I am not saying we are without hope." She changed the display to show technical readouts and analysis reports. "Our intelligence division has spent the past 3 days studying every piece of data we have on Council species and their technology. What we found is surprising. Despite their advanced capabilities, the Council races have shown almost no technological progress in the past several thousand years." General Nathan Price, commander of Earth's Orbital Defense Forces, frowned from his position along the wall. "Explain what you mean by that." "They reached a certain level of development and simply stopped," Margaret said. "They mastered faster than light travel, energy weapons, and artificial gravity. They built massive fleets and conquered or absorbed every species they encountered. And then they had no one left to challenge them. No competition. No pressure to improve. They became administrators of a vast empire rather than explorers pushing the boundaries of knowledge." Admiral Patterson stepped forward, her sharp eyes scanning the faces around the table. "What Dr. Ellis is describing is a civilization that has grown comfortable. They have not fought a real war in 8,000 years. They have forgotten what it means to struggle, to adapt, to fight for survival. And we have not," Kyle Bennett added, pulling up additional data on his tablet. "Humanity has been at war with itself for our entire history. We have faced extinction-level events, world wars, and countless conflicts. Each time we have survived because we learned and adapted faster than our enemies. It is in our nature." Daniel leaned back in his chair, considering this information. "So you are suggesting that our capacity for rapid innovation gives us an advantage?" "A potential advantage," Grace corrected. "But there is more. Our intelligence networks have identified fractures within the Council itself. Not all of the elder species support this ultimatum." Kyle activated a new display showing profiles of various Council races. 3 species in particular have been quietly dissenting from Council policy for centuries. The Velthari are a diplomatic race who believe in cooperation rather than domination. The Crossan Collective is a hive mind species that values diversity of thought and sees humanity as an interesting new variable in galactic politics. And the Melith are ancient observers who have grown tired of the Council's stagnation. "Are you saying we might have allies?" asked Governor Dunn, hope creeping into her voice. "Potential allies," Kyle emphasized. but they will not commit to supporting us unless they believe we can survive the initial confrontation. They need to see that humanity is strong enough to be worth backing. The room fell into thoughtful silence as everyone absorbed this information. Then a voice spoke from the far end of the table. Admiral Richard Hayes, a veteran of the Mars Uprising who had spent his entire life in military service, rose to his feet. "Let me make sure I understand the situation," he said, his gravelly voice cutting through the quiet. "We are facing an enemy with superior numbers, superior technology, and 40,000 years of experience. Our only advantages are our ability to adapt quickly and the slim possibility that some of their own people might turn against them if we prove ourselves worthy." "That is correct," Margaret confirmed. Richard nodded slowly, a cold smile spreading across his weathered face. "I have faced worse odds." A ripple of grim laughter moved through the military officers in the room. They understood what he meant. Every soldier in human history had faced moments where victory seemed impossible. And yet somehow, humanity had always found a way. Daniel stood and walked to the center of the room, looking at each face in turn. "We have heard the facts. Now we must decide. Do we submit to the Council's demands and accept our place as a servant species? Or do we stand and fight for our right to exist as a free people?" The debate continued for hours after that. Some argued for compliance, reasoning that survival under any conditions was better than extinction. Others demanded immediate military preparation, insisting that death with honor was preferable to slavery. A few suggested diplomatic stalling, buying time while humanity secretly built up its forces, but through it all, one voice remained steady and certain. Admiral Grace Patterson listened to every argument, considered every perspective, and waited for the moment when the room would be ready to hear what she had to say. Finally, as the debate began to circle back on itself for the third time, she stood. The room fell quiet. Every eye turned to her, and in that moment, she felt the weight of billions of lives resting on her shoulders. "They expect us to cower," she said simply. "Every species the Council has encountered has either submitted or been destroyed. They do not understand what we are. They see our short history and assume we are weak. They see our internal conflicts and assume we are divided. They see our small numbers and assume we are insignificant." She walked slowly around the table, meeting each pair of eyes she passed. They do not know what happens when humanity is pushed into a corner. They do not know what we become when we have no choice but to fight. They have never seen what our species can do when survival itself is at stake. She stopped at the head of the table. Standing beside Daniel Cooper, "I'll say, we give them their answer," she declared, her voice cold as the void between stars. "And I say we make sure they remember it for the next 40,000 years." The Galactic Council's diplomatic station floated in the empty darkness of neutral space, like a monument to power and authority. It was a massive structure, larger than most cities on Earth, designed with one purpose in mind. Every species that approached it was meant to feel small. Every delegation that entered its halls was meant to understand their own insignificance before the might of the elder races. 12 great halls branched out from the central core, each one representing a different council species. The architecture of each hall reflected the nature of its owners. The Devouring Swarm section was organic and unsettling, with walls that seemed to pulse like living tissue. The Crystalline Hegemony's hall sparkled with geometric precision. Every surface covered in perfect angles and reflective surfaces, and at the very center of the station stood the Chamber of Judgment, a vast circular room where the fates of entire civilizations had been decided for 40,000 years. High Arbiter Velthan sat upon his elevated throne at the head of the chamber, surrounded by the representatives of the other 11 species. They had gathered to receive humanity's formal response to the ultimatum. Most of them expected groveling and submission. A few anticipated defiance that would give them justification for a swift military campaign. The betting among the younger representatives was heavily in favor of humanity accepting the Council's terms. After all, every species eventually submitted when faced with the reality of Council power. None of them expected what they were about to receive. The human delegation arrived in a single vessel. an unremarkable diplomatic courier that was barely larger than a shuttle. It docked at the station's lower levels. The council representatives watched through security feeds as the humans emerged. There are only 10 of them. Secretary General Daniel Cooper led the group, walking with the steady pace of a man who had nothing to fear. Admiral Grace Patterson walked beside him, her military uniform crisp and her expression revealing nothing. Dr. Margaret Ellis followed close behind, along with Lieutenant Commander Kyle Bennett and a security detail of 6 soldiers in ceremonial dress. Uniforms. The council representatives exchanged glances of amusement as the small human party made their way through the station's corridors. Such a tiny delegation. Such a pathetic show of strength. Surely this was a species that understood its place. The massive doors of the Chamber of Judgment opened, and the humans entered without hesitation. Their footsteps echoed in the vast space as they walked toward the center of the room. Past the towering thrones of the 12 council species, every eye in the chamber watched them, studied them, judged them. Daniel Cooper stopped at the designated spot for lesser species to stand when addressing the council. It was a small circle on the floor, positioned so that anyone standing there would have to look up at the representatives above. The design was intentional. It was meant to remind visitors of their inferior status. High Arbiter Velthan gazed down at the humans with his 6 eyes, and a thin smile crossed his alien features. "You have come to deliver your answer," he stated. "It was not a question." "We have," Daniel replied, his voice calm and clear. "And speak." "The council awaits your submission." Daniel took a slow breath and clasped his hands behind his back. When he spoke, his words carried across the silent chamber with perfect clarity. "The people of Earth have considered your terms," he began. "We have debated among ourselves, as is our way. Every nation, every colony, every citizen has had the opportunity to voice their opinion. We have weighed the consequences of each possible response. We have considered the safety of our children and the future of our species." He paused, letting the silence stretch for a long moment. "We decline." A ripple of surprise moved through the chamber. Several of the council representatives shifted in their seats, and the insectoid being from the crystalline hegemony clicked its mandibles in. What might have been laughter or disbelief, Velthan's eyes narrowed. "You decline," he repeated, his voice flat and cold. "You understand what this means, human? You understand the consequences of your arrogance?" "We understand completely," Daniel said. "And we have a message for the council. The council does not receive messages from inferior species. The council gives commands. Then consider this not a message, but a warning." Daniel's voice hardened, and something changed in his posture. The diplomatic mask fell away, revealing the steel beneath. Humanity will not submit to council authority. We will not abandon our colonies. We will not limit our expansion. And we will not be intimidated by threats from those who have forgotten what it means to fight for survival. Admiral Grace Patterson stepped forward, and a holographic display activated in the center of the chamber without any council authorization. The technology had been smuggled in with the delegation, and it worked flawlessly, despite the station's security systems. A star map appeared, showing human-controlled space with all 17 colony worlds highlighted in blue. "In the 3 days since your ultimatum," Grace said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded fleets in battle, "we have repositioned our entire military force. Every colony world now has defensive installations in place. Our shipyards across human space are operating at maximum capacity. Our weapons research divisions have been given unlimited resources and full authorization to develop new technologies." She manipulated the display with practiced ease, zooming outward to show the borders between human territory and council space. Red lines began to appear, marking strategic positions throughout the region. "We have also completed a full analysis of your infrastructure," she continued. "Your supply lines, your communication networks, your resource extraction operations, your fleet deployment patterns. We have identified 147 critical vulnerabilities in your systems." The chamber had gone completely silent. Even Velthan seemed unable to respond. "If you attack us," Grace said, We will not simply defend our worlds and wait for death. We will strike back. We will target every weakness we have found. We will disrupt your supply chains. We will destroy your communication relays. We will make you bleed for every system you try to take from us. She deactivated the star map and looked directly at Velthan. You have millions of ships. We have thousands. You have 40,000 years of history. We have 300. But you have something we do not have. You have something to lose. Representative Salith of the Velthari leaned forward slightly, her silver eyes fixed on the human admiral with what might have been curiosity or respect. Grace continued without pause. Your civilization is built on stability and control. Your economy depends on uninterrupted trade across thousands of systems. Your population has known nothing but peace for 8,000 years. A war with humanity will not be a quick campaign. It will be long and bloody and costly beyond anything you can imagine. She took a step closer to the center of the chamber. We know we cannot defeat you, she admitted. Not yet. But we do not need to defeat you. We only need to make victory cost more than you are willing to pay. And while you spend decades trying to crush us, we will be learning. We will be adapting. We will be improving. Her eyes swept across the assembled council representatives. You have had 40,000 years of peace. You have forgotten what war really looks like. We have not. Our entire history is written in blood and fire. We have fought ourselves for millennia, and we are still here. What makes you think you will succeed where we ourselves failed? Daniel stepped forward again, his voice calm but firm. We are not asking for war. We are asking to be left alone. Respect our boundaries, and we will respect yours. Trade with us. Learn from us. Let us grow alongside you rather than beneath you. He paused and met Velthan's six-eyed gaze without flinching. But if you come for us, he said quietly, understand that you will not be facing a species that has known only comfort and peace. You will be facing humanity, and we do not know how to surrender. The human delegation turned and walked toward the chamber doors. Grace paused at the threshold and looked back over her shoulder. You have one galactic cycle to consider our response, she said. Use it wisely. The doors closed behind them, and the council was left in stunned silence. For the first time in 8,000 years, a lesser species had looked into the eyes of the elder races and refused to kneel. The weeks following humanity's response were the most tense in the history of both civilizations. Council warships gathered at the borders of human space like storm clouds building on the horizon. Thousands of vessels from a dozen different species formed massive fleets, their commanders awaiting the order to advance. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for the war that seemed inevitable. But the order never came. Arbiter Velthan had expected swift consensus for military action. He had expected the council to unite in righteous anger against the arrogant humans who dared to defy them. He had expected to lead the greatest military campaign in 8,000 years and crush this upstart species beneath the weight of council power. Instead, he found the council divided in ways it had not been for millennia. The first sign of trouble came during a closed session of the council leadership. 3 days after the human delegation departed, Velthan had called the meeting to finalize invasion plans. But before he could even present his strategy, Representative Salith of the Velthari rose from her seat. I must speak, she said, her silver eyes calm but determined. Before we commit to this course of action, the council must consider what we are truly fighting for. Velthan's six eyes narrowed with irritation. We are fighting to maintain order. We are fighting to preserve the natural hierarchy of the galaxy. We are fighting to remind lesser species of their place, are we? Salith asked. Or are we fighting over empty rocks? A murmur rippled through the chamber. Such direct questioning of the High Arbiter was rare, and Salith's words bordered on disrespect. She continued without hesitation. The humans have done nothing but colonize uninhabited worlds. Worlds that the Council had no interest in. Worlds that sat empty for thousands of years while we ignored them. Are we truly prepared to sacrifice millions of lives? To spend trillions in resources? to destabilize our economy and disrupt our trade routes, all over planets that none of us wanted? It is not about the worlds, Velthan replied, his voice tight with controlled anger. It is about authority. It is about respect. If we allow one species to defy us, others will follow. The Keth Confederation will grow bold. The Outer Rim territories will rebel. The entire structure of galactic civilization will crumble. Perhaps, said a new voice, deep and resonant like stones grinding together, Marath of the Crossian Collective shifted his crystalline form, light refracting through his body in patterns that indicated deep thought. Or perhaps the structure needs to change. The Council has grown stagnant, High Arbiter. We have not faced a true challenge in 8,000 years. We have not innovated. We have not evolved. We have simply existed, maintaining an order that benefits only ourselves. Heresy hissed the representative of the devouring swarm, its many legs clicking against the floor in agitation. The natural order must be maintained. The strong rule the weak. This is the way of the universe, is it? Marath asked. Or is it simply the way we have chosen? The humans offer something we have not seen in millennia. Competition, challenge, a reason to grow beyond what we have become. The debate continued for hours, voices rising and falling as ancient alliances strained under the pressure of this unexpected crisis. By the end of the session, nothing had been decided, and the cracks in the Council's unity had grown wider. In the weeks that followed, those cracks became fractures. Intelligence reports reached Velthan's desk, showing that the Velthari had opened secret communication channels with human diplomats. They were not discussing alliance, not yet, but they were talking, exchanging ideas, exploring possibilities that would have been unthinkable just months before. The Crossian Collective began quietly repositioning their fleet, pulling ships away from the border with human space and redeploying them to protect their own territory. When questioned, Marith claimed it was routine maintenance. No one believed him, even the Malith. Those ancient observers who had remained neutral in council politics for longer than most species had existed were rumored to be reconsidering their position. Their ambassador had been seen meeting privately with Salith, and the topics of their discussions remained carefully hidden. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Grace Patterson oversaw the largest military buildup in human history. Shipyards that had once produced a handful of vessels, each year now operated around the clock, churning out warships at a pace that would have seemed impossible before the ultimatum. New facilities opened on Luna, on Mars, in the asteroid belt, and in orbit around every colony world. The economy shifted to a war footing, and every resource humanity could spare went toward one goal. Survival. Dr. Margaret Ellis led the research efforts, coordinating teams of scientists across dozens of worlds. Her latest report to the military command showed progress that exceeded even the most optimistic projections. We have made breakthroughs in 3 critical areas, she explained, standing before a holographic display in the command center. First, faster-than-light communication. Our new quantum relay system can transmit messages across human space instantaneously, giving us a significant advantage in coordinating fleet movements. She changed the display to show technical specifications for a new type of energy shield. Second, defensive technology. Our new shields are 300% more efficient than previous designs. They can absorb sustained fire from Council's standard weapons for extended periods, giving our ships much greater survivability in combat. The display shifted again, this time showing weapons systems. Third, offensive capability. Our new plasma lance technology can penetrate Council shielding at ranges they consider safe. Their defensive doctrines assume enemies cannot threaten them beyond a certain distance. We have just made that assumption invalid. Lieutenant Commander Kyle Bennett studied the data with careful attention. How long until these systems are deployed across the fleet? 6 months for full integration, Margaret replied, but we are already installing them on new construction. Every ship that leaves our yards from this point forward will carry the latest technology. Grace nodded slowly, her mind working through the strategic implications. And our intelligence on Council movements? Kyle pulled up a separate display, Their fleet remains at the border, but they have not advanced. Our sources within Council Space report ongoing political conflict. The war faction is losing support every day that passes without action. The longer they wait, the stronger we become, and the weaker their position grows. Then we continue as planned, Grace said. Build our forces. Strengthen our defenses. Reach out to potential allies among the dissenting species. And prepare for whatever comes next. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, thousands of alien warships waited for orders that might never come. Somewhere out there, ancient powers debated the fate of her species. And somewhere out there, the future of the galaxy was being decided. They thought we would break, she said quietly. They thought we would see their power and fall to our knees. They do not understand us. They cannot understand us. We are not a species that surrenders. We are not a species that accepts defeat. We are humanity. She turned back to face her officers. And we are just getting started. Across the border. In the halls of the council station, High Arbiter Velthon sat alone in his chambers. Staring at the reports that arrived daily, the humans were building. The humans were growing stronger. The humans were reaching out to his own people and finding sympathetic ears. He had lived for 3,000 years. He had seen species rise and fall. He had always believed that the Council's dominance was the natural order of the universe. It's unchangeable and eternal. Now, for the first time in his long life, doubt crept into his ancient heart. The humans were something new, something different, something that did not follow the patterns he had learned to predict over millennia of experience. And that terrified him more than any fleet ever could. 1 year had passed since the Galactic Council delivered its ultimatum to humanity. 1 year of tension and preparation, 1 year of political maneuvering and secret negotiations. 1 year that changed the galaxy forever. The Council convened in the Chamber of Judgment for what many believed would be the final vote on military action against the human species. The war faction, led by High Arbiter Velthon and supported by the Devouring Swarm, had spent months building support among the undecided representatives. They had made promises and threats in equal measure. They had called in ancient debts and forged new alliances. They believed they finally had the votes needed to authorize the invasion. The chamber was filled with tension as the 12 representatives took their positions. Velthon sat upon his throne with confidence in his 6 eyes. Today would be the day humanity learned the true cost of defiance. Today would be the day the natural order was restored. But before the vote could begin, the holographic display at the center of the chamber activated without authorization. The image that appeared made every representative in the room fall silent. Admiral Grace Patterson's face filled the display, her expression calm and cold as frozen steel. Representatives of the Galactic Council, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. 1 year ago, you gave humanity an ultimatum. You expected us to submit. You expected us to kneel. Instead, we chose to stand. Today, we offer you a demonstration of what that choice has meant. The display shifted, and the chamber filled with gasps of shock and disbelief. The image showed the Outer Rim system of New Haven, one of humanity's 17 colony worlds. A Council's surveillance probe had been monitoring the system for months, transmitting data back to the elder races. That probe now showed something that shattered every assumption the Council made about human capabilities. The human fleet had grown, not by dozens of ships, not by hundreds. The fleet had grown by thousands, where 1 year ago, humanity had fielded 8,000 vessels. Now, there were over 30,000. They hung in perfect formation around the colony world, row after row of warships bristling with weapons. And these were not the primitive craft the Council had dismissed so easily. These were new designs, sleek and deadly, built with technologies that had not existed 12 months before. In 1 year, Grace continued, we have quadrupled our military capacity. Every ship you see carries weapons that can penetrate your standard shielding. Every ship has engines faster than anything in your current fleet. Every ship is crewed by men and women who have trained for this moment since the day you threatened our children. The display zoomed in on one of the new vessels. It was unlike anything the Council had encountered, with sharp angular lines and a hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "We call this the Defiance class," Grace said. "Each one carries enough firepower to destroy a Council battle station. We currently have 312 of them in active service. By this time next year, we will have over 1,000. Velthan rose from his throne, his scales flushing dark with anger. "This changes nothing," he declared. "The Council's forces still outnumber yours by orders of magnitude. You have built toys while we command empires."
"That's true," Grace acknowledged.
"Your numbers are greater. Your territory is vast. Your history stretches back 40,000 years, while ours barely fills 3 centuries. But consider what we have accomplished in just 12 months.